And I think a lot of it is because of hope, and the organization, the fan bases, it's excitement of adding new players and new talented players. But really, the truth of it is, like, these rookies, you're drafting for 2 or 3 years down the road.
Well, I mean, let's talk about Mendoza because you both have a history coaching quarterbacks.
The advice I'd give him is when you get there, introduce yourself to Brock Bauer, and then every time he runs a route, go throw it to him.
Yeah, I mean,
don't worry about all the reads.
You need somebody immediately who is available. And I think the scout said, like, well, what kind of quarterback are you looking for? And we're like, well, what am I supposed to, a blonde? Like, what am I supposed to say here? Like, I want the best effing quarterback that's available. Like, hey, before we get started, make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. Welcome to The Family Business, a podcast about football and life from the perspective of a coach and his daughter. I'm Stephanie Turner, and I'm here with my dad, Norv Turner, and my brother, Scott Turner. So it's draft week in the NFL. Front offices are making those final decisions. Boards are being set, and the future of the league and a lot of young athletes is about to change. Today, we're going to break it all down, what teams are thinking, what really happens in draft rooms, and who we think has a chance to make an immediate impact. But first, it's been a while. We haven't done an episode in a while. So how are you guys?
Doing well. Yeah, just had some visitors. Dad and Mom were out visiting us for almost 2 weeks, so got to hang out with them, which was fun. They saw Rose be Peter Pan in her play, which was good. We all enjoyed that.
Videos were great.
Yeah, it was good to spend time.
I have to give a little sample of. I've been to
Peter Pan performance.
I've been to dance shows, about a 5-hour dance program. Been traveling around.
Yes, we've been, let's see, the Super Bowl football season ended, and then we went right into, spring sports, track meets, dance competitions, kids, family activities. I was working on a TV show, which was a TV job, which was a lot of fun and kept me very busy. But we're just, congratulations, Dad. It was announced you are being inducted into the Senior Bowl Hall of Fame. That's it coming up in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, that one caught me by surprise. I had a lot of experience in the Senior Bowl. I coached there 3 times as an assistant, a couple times with the Rams, and then once with the 49ers, and then I was the head coach there for 3 years. And you were talking about the draft. And people don't appreciate the importance of the Senior Bowl players because you get the best players or a lot of the best players, and you get to see them go against each other in practice, for 3 or 4 days. And a lot of draft decisions are made based on that, particularly by the guys who get an opportunity to coach it.
Yeah.
They get to be with them, be with the players every day for a week and in meetings and practice and meals. You really get a feel for the guys.
Several times I feel like it came up in conversations we had on the podcast with different people, different players that you met first at the Senior Bowl or you saw play at the Senior Bowl. And I think that is a good point for those coaches who get an opportunity to go coach those teams. Like, you kind of get this first look of like how a guy is, how he interacts, but also like how he is in a game scenario. And obviously we know it's not an 100% authentic game scenario because it's not your team and it's like a bunch of guys being pulled together, but still it helps, right? To see that.
There's no question. It helps for all the scouts and all that, but they see the players through the season, where coaches get there, even if they're not coaching them, it's their first exposure to the players. And then if you're coaching, you get to, as I said, see how the guy learns, how he communicates with other people, how he gets along. There's just a lot to it.
Yeah.
No, but it's good. Congrats, Dad, on getting there. Yeah, I know you spent a lot of time in Mobile over the years. So that'll be fun.
Why is the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama? That's the thing. Like growing up, it'd always be like, "Oh, Dad's going to the Senior Bowl," and it's like Mobile, Alabama. There he goes.
I don't know the answer to that. Maybe Dad does. It's always been there though.
It's been going since the 50s. So I don't know. They've got it's a great place to have it, to be honest with you. And they fill the stadium, and it's like a coaches convention. Maybe not so much now as it was, but there's no question. All the coaches used to go, and they would have. They had the seafood jubilee one night in the big ballroom, and it was quite an experience, particularly when my first year going I was probably 36, 37 years old.
Mhm.
You're standing there and getting your bowl of clam chowder, and there's Don Shula next to you getting his
Right.
chowder or whatever.
All right. So should we talk about? I mean, it's draft week.
Well, we forgot one thing. Now I had shoulder surgery while we were off. I've been recuperating and
Not while we were off.
Oh, did I have it?
You had it
Yeah,
before.
well, I've been recovering.
Yeah.
From
You've been
it.
in physical therapy. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm like, how long do you think we've been off? How long have you been?
I just wanted to talk.
Wait, are we in a
about it
time machine? What's
because
going on?
I'm recovering from it now, and I'm thinking about these players, and it's really a forgotten deal, but there's so many different ways you can improve your team. Obviously, this time of year, everyone wants to talk about the draft. That's one way. Obviously, the development of your players, particularly your young players, is a big part of it, which people don't talk about enough and don't understand. And then guys recovering from injuries, and I'm not recovering and getting ready to play or even trying to throw,
You are trying to golf again.
but it is important. It's important that the guys do it and do it right because you're expecting those guys back and to be a part of your team again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the draft is happening this weekend, and exciting time for football fans. Everyone's, a lot of draft coverage. As you both know, I don't follow college football. I don't like college football. Now, it's fine, but who has the time to follow college football and NFL football,
And have,
Some people do.
I know.
and raise their kids and
I know. I have to. Anyway, so I like to start paying attention to these players when they make it into the league, but I do know who they are, and I've watched some of their games, the big ones, but I know you guys follow them and are, well-versed. You've sat through, like, as we said in the intro, you've sat in these draft rooms, in all these draft meetings. I'm curious, like, how easy is it for everyone on a team to agree who your top picks are going to be?
I think it's pretty difficult, actually. I mean, I wouldn't say, and everyone's different, and there's certain guys that there's going to be consensus on, but like I think there's a lot of really good discussions, that people have, and just talking about who you're going to pick and what a guy will value, and I've been in those. I mean, Dad's been in the meetings, but like one guy, there's certain guys that everyone agrees on, either good or bad. And then, but some guys, I mean, you can be pretty split, like in the room and, discussing a receiver, for example. And, the scouts might be higher on them than coaches or vice versa, or some coaches might be higher on them than the other. Just depends on, everyone's different. So everyone's evaluation is going to be different. Everyone is looking for something maybe a little different. I think this draft is going to be really interesting because outside of the number one pick, which I think everyone knows Mendoza is going to be the first pick in the draft, to the Raiders, after that, like there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of speculation as far as who's going to go. And I don't know if anybody really has a great feel for how these players are going to come off the board. after that, so it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, we already obviously saw a huge trade with the Giants, trading Dexter Lawrence to um, the Bengals and
Yeah.
getting the
Cincinnati.
and get the 10th overall pick, which there's not a lot of picks that, where you get, there's not a lot of, straight just player for pick without anything else, just straight up trade. So that was kind of interesting. And obviously he's an all pro player. And that's going to be a big addition to them. And now the Giants have the fifth and the 10th pick. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go, or do they trade down because they don't pick again until the fourth round. So, that's just the first thing that happened. And I bet you there's going to be more trades or, things like that, as the draft starts and continues on into through the weekend.
Well, yeah, and trying to get a consensus, we have a good story, Scott. You can talk about in when we're at Carolina, and I think people know we were looking to take a receiver in the first round, but we got in a discussion, and it was pretty split between two guys. Scott, you can kind of.
Yeah, so DJ Moore and then Calvin Ridley both came out the same year, and Calvin Ridley was a little bit of an older player, and he's just a few years older than and DJ had only been in I think he was 20 or 21 years old, from Maryland, and Calvin Ridley was coming out of Alabama, and both were really really good players, and we had a lot of discussions about the two of them, and I would say the building was pretty split, and ultimately, like, Marty Herney was the general manager, and I'm sure with Ron Rivera, and then he discussed it with us and receiver coaches and everything too. But ultimately, he made the decision to draft DJ, and that's obviously Calvin Ridley's had a pretty good career. He's had some off the field issues, and everything was suspended for that one season. But DJ has been a more productive player, and that that ended up working out for us in Carolina. And then obviously we know DJ went to the Chicago, and now he's on the Bills. But those are the types of things that you're talking about, where this is not something that's thought of lightly in organizations. I mean, there's long meetings, there's long discussions, there's meetings outside the meetings, and then ultimately someone's got to make a decision, whether that's the general manager or the head coach, based off the the structure in the organization, who's got the final say. And a lot of times those two guys are in agreement, at least, but that's not always the case either, and the person that has the final say, some will have a strong feeling about a player, and they'll end up, picking them anyways. And, that once that happens, they're on your team, and you got to work and go. But, as coaches, like, sometimes we'd have a guy that, there's times that it happened where we might have been lower on a guy and he gets drafted, and sometimes works out and sometimes it doesn't. But you don't always get the guys you necessarily want, or that you have ranked. It's not the same for the guy making the decision or the people in the front office.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you might have a favorite, or really be advocating for somebody, and then it's not the GM's, especially when if you're the head coach, then it's more of a battle, right? To really,
Right.
really push for those. And like you said, depending on the organization and who kind of has that final say, I think it should always be the head coach, but because he's the person that has to coach, they're the person that has to coach the players. So why not let them pick the players? But that's obviously my opinion. But yeah, like, as assistant coaches, you might advocate or be like, hey, I really like this person, I really think he'd be great. And then he might not. And like you said, you have to just kind of coach the people that are there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, once they're on your team, I mean, you're theirs, and it's never like, when you're doing an evaluation, it's not personal about the players. You just try to be honest and give your evaluation how you see it, and then once you get them, once the guys are on your team, you gotta make them the best player, the best version of themselves that they can be, regardless of what your pre-draft ranking was on it.
Yeah, though I just go back to the point I made earlier, because you brought up DJ going to Buffalo. My opinion, and I'm a big fan of DJ, and obviously I think he fits the quarterback and what they do extremely well in Buffalo. I think he'll have as much impact on improving that team as any of these guys that people are talking about in the high picks or in the draft. because he's an experienced player. He's had success. I think he really fits their team. So there's a lot of ways to improve. And I think Buffalo did a really good job of getting better, adding DJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at that. I mean, the draft, and it's the people love it. I mean, obviously, it's like the biggest sporting event, non-game sporting event, and it gets higher ratings than a lot of the games and other than the other professional sports leagues. And I think a lot of it is because of hope, and the organization, the fan bases, it's excitement of adding new players and new talented players. But really, the truth of it is, like, these rookies, you're drafting for 2 or 3 years down the road. That's where you're going to see the true impact. And don't get me wrong, a lot of these guys will come in and have an impact in year one. But just from the teams I've been on, if you're counting on a bunch of rookies, you're probably not. You probably don't have a great team. You want these guys to kind of supplement the roster that you have. And then those first, second, and third round picks, those guys in 2 or 3 years, you want those guys to be the kind of the heart or the backbone of your team. That's the hope. Because it is hard. It is hard as a rookie to come in and transition to the NFL and have a great impact in year one. That's why when the guys they come in and do it, it's such a remarkable feat because of how how challenging the NFL is and how different it is coming from college.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that is the thing. Like you said, there's all the excitement around it. People want to watch. People are missing NFL content, so they're excited about, and hopeful for their teams. But as we know from being a part of many teams, like, nothing is guaranteed. Someone could be this amazing player in college, and then it is a hard transition. And I think, let's talk about Mendoza, because you both have a history coaching quarterbacks, and he's the most talked about. He's going to be the first round or the first pick. And he's going to go to the Raiders. I mean, that's unless something crazy happens.
No, that's going to happen. I think you can pretty much book that.
But what do you think about him as a player, just in general? Like, if you were evaluating him or having watched his games, watched him play, like, what are both of your take turns? What are both of your evaluations of him?
Well, the number one thing, you love about him is his size, the 6'5", 236, standing in the pocket. He's an accurate passer. The offense that he ran in Indiana was a little bit of a kind of a RPO pick and stick where, he wasn't making a lot of complex reads or anything like that. And that's what the kind of the criticism or the transition part for him will be. I don't think he'll have an issue learning. The stat they talk about is he only attempted 5 passes from under center in his career. So he's going to have to learn how to, play from under center, which again, I'm sure he's already been working on that. And then the Raiders signed Kirk Cousins. So he doesn't have to play right away, and he's got a veteran quarterback he can learn from, as well as obviously learn from the coaching staff. But, I'm sure that they're going to want him to play sooner rather than later, but they can kind of use their own timeline and not have to force him out there, if they don't feel like he's necessarily ready. But I don't think physically he's going to have any issue. It's just like the biggest thing. It's not taking the snap. Like, he'll learn how to take a snap from under center. It's the play action where you're turning your back to the defense. He just doesn't have a lot of experience doing that. But that's what the reps are going to be for in the OTAs and training camp. And I'm sure, everything I've heard about the guy is that he's going to work incredibly hard. He takes football very seriously. So from an intangible standpoint, it sounds like exactly what you're looking for with the number one overall pick. Now, obviously, he's got to go put in the work and learn the offense, and I'm sure he will.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I just agree with Scott and his size, his presence. I think he's got great vision. He stands tall in the pocket. He can move. He's really impressive. And I think there is a buffer there, but we kind of went through it. We drafted Teddy Bridgewater in the what was it, first pick in the second round? Is that
No, it was a 32nd. It was the last pick of the first round. So because
last
we won
pick
it, we got the
first round? And you know, everyone kind of thought, well, he needs to develop and all that, and we thought he was as ready to play as anyone coming out that year because he really understood football and he has such great presence in college. But we had someone to play first, and Matt played.
Matt Castle.
Matt Castle played, and unfortunately for Matt, and it sped up Teddy's development. Matt got hurt in the third game. He broke his ankle. I think he broke his ankle.
Yeah, he broke his foot. He broke his foot against the Saints. Yeah, and Teddy came in.
Then Teddy played, and Teddy played great as a rookie. You know, I think we won 7 games with him, and if we were a little better team, we could have won more. And then the second year with Teddy, we won 11 games and won the division. And you know, he wasn't the centerpiece, but he made a lot of plays that gave us a chance to win games. And he didn't have a lot of negative plays. So that's what you're looking for from Mendoza, and I think he'll provide that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and at some point, these quarterbacks, I mean, it's a thing where they make it where you got to play him. I mean, if he's clearly the best guy, you know what I mean, he's going to be out there. I mean, we drafted Cam Newton with the number 1 pick in the draft in when I was in Carolina in 2011, and that was actually the lockout year, so we didn't even have an off season or anything, and it was just training camp. And you know, we had Derek Anderson as a veteran option, but you know, through practice, I mean, you saw Cam and we're like, well, we gotta play this guy, you know, and he was rookie of the year, had a great year. So at some point, the player and the players, I mean, everyone sees it, and you know, you want to get him out there. The one thing you just don't want to do is play a guy early and get him in a situation where he's getting hit a lot and hurts his confidence. But you know, I think this guy will hit the ground running and be ready to play. The one thing I wanted to add with him is like his ability to bounce back from negative plays was really outstanding on his college tape too. There was 3 different times where he threw interceptions, and the other team either tied or took the lead. He bounced back all 3 times, leading the team down and throwing a touchdown pass to take the lead. And I think that's big. You see him, you know, and obviously played in a lot of really big games.
Yeah.
And they won the national championship in Indiana, which is, I mean, when's the last time that happened? It's never happened, you know. So
Yeah.
you know, so that just that part of it is very impressive.
What
You
do
know,
you
and
think about like the offense he's going to learn compared to what he was running in Indiana? Like how much more complex that is.
Yeah, and I don't know about the complexity of it, if it's that much, if that's something. The one thing I know, like in Indiana, they didn't have any like checks at the line of scrimmage, where I know Clint Kubiak's offense, you know, they call them cans, where he can get, you know, it's a 2 plays are called and you either get to one or the other. So, you know, he's going to have to do that based off of defensive looks, which I don't think he'll have a problem with that, but that's new. And then, like I said, about playing under center, whether the under center run game and then the play action off of that, you know, he was always in the shotgun at Indiana and at Cal also, you know, where he came from before he went to Indiana. So that part of it is going to be really the transition, and then just just your normal transition into the NFL. I mean, where you're playing with better players, it's faster, you know what I mean? That part of it too, on top of just learning the new offense. I mean, I think that's going to be more of the challenge for him because he knows how to drop back. He knows how to throw the ball, like all those types of things. It's just, you know, getting with his teammates, you know, building a connection with them and again, just, you know, adjusting to the speed of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he's a smart guy. And the advice I'd give him is, when you get there, introduce yourself to Brock Bauer, and then every time he runs a route, go throw it to him.
Yeah, I mean
don't worry about all the reads. Throw it to Brock.
I
think we had all of that, didn't we, Scott?
We sure did. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, you know, they got a young team. I mean, you know, obviously they're picking first in the draft because they weren't very good last year, but they got some young players that, you know, I think they'll kind of all grow together, and they're going to lean on the running game, I'm sure, no matter who the quarterback is. You know, with Genty and that should help. That should help him as well.
Yeah, the thing that with their offense with Clint. If everyone watched Seattle shoot, they played all through, won the Super Bowl. It's a quarterback friendly offense if you can run the ball, which, that's going to be a major issue, a major emphasis for them. We know what they want to do. And then if you can run the ball, it ties into what Scott's talking about, under center, play action, staying out of all those third down and longs. It's a better opportunity to protect the quarterback. And then, everyone wants, people, different quarterbacks, hey, free Gus, or, turn him loose, or let this guy play.
Let him cook.
Huh?
I said, let him cook.
Let it cook. But the point being is, with a young guy, I mean, there's going to be things he does really well. There's going to be things he does that are, pretty good. And then there's things he's not comfortable with. You don't have to do everything. And particularly if you can run the ball, you find out what this guy does best. Make sure those are things that you're including in your game plan. And then all together, you keep working on getting good at more things. And the more things you're good at, obviously, the more opportunities everyone's going to have. But that's going to be the key for the Raiders, not getting carried away and trying to do too much too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, speaking of the Raiders of it all, because we've talked about this, we talked to Kirk Morrison about this. Like, the Raiders have struggled as an organization to find consistency. They've got a lot of turnover with coaches, players. Do you think this could be different for them? Or is it just going to be the same old? I mean, they've brought in really great coaches before and they haven't lasted. And I don't know, is this hopeful for Raider fans?
I think so. I think you gotta, you never know, ultimately. But it seems like, the front office and the coaching staff, I think they're pretty united. It seems like everyone's kind of moving in the right direction. The big thing is, they're just going to have to not make a knee-jerk reaction if things aren't going well. I mean, that's, I understand that it does take time, and and not always. I mean, sometimes there is a quicker turnaround, but just because that the wins maybe aren't necessarily coming, don't try to do something drastic. And I think that's what has happened there in the past. And they're just they're resetting, using up resetting over and over again, and you never get a chance to kind of get things going in the right direction. That seems like that's just my opinion. And, hopefully, they'll give these guys some time and, build around some of these young players that they have or that they're going to add, obviously, on, this weekend. But that's where it looks like, at least, obviously they had Pete Carroll, they fired him after 1 year, but to hire a younger coach. And, I think that's what it seems like their plan is to do, you know what I mean? Is kind of build this thing the right way.
Yeah. Let's see if they actually do it.
Yeah, that's our approach. There are some obstacles. There's three good teams in their division. I mean, you said we want San Diego won 11 games. I know Kansas City was off last year, but they're not going to be off for long. And Denver's a developing team. So competitive in your division, and then just take those small steps and build on it, because it just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who else is going to be sort of a top pick that you guys are excited about or hopeful? Any other names come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, the name that everyone's kind of interested in, and I've done some talk with some Washington media, and they're talking about the running back from Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love. I think people are interested to see where he's going to go. They think he's people predict him to be a top 10 pick. I mean, even as high as going to the Cardinals at 3. I was reading something about that this morning. I know that there's a lot of love for him in Washington, and people think if he was there at 7 that's where he's gonna end up being drafted. And obviously, he's a dynamic player in college at Notre Dame, and a guy that people know. So I think there's a lot of intrigue on where he's going to end up. There's some intrigue with the receiver position. With Carnell Tate from Ohio State, and then Tyson from Arizona State. Which guy's going to be the first guy picked? The receiver Lemon from USC as well. Those are 3 guys that are thought of as potential first round players. And kind of the order that they come off. There's some disagreement, amongst people, at least the talking heads in the media. So it'll be interesting to see that. And then same thing with like the edge rushers on defense. I mean, the David Bailey from Texas Tech, which is a dynamic player, and he's thought of to be picked potentially the number 2 pick by the Jets, and then but there's Reese from Ohio State that's thrown in there too. So like that, who's going to go? Ruben Bain with people talk about his short arms from Miami, but he was like unblockable, and so where he ends up. As well. And then the other high profile defense player is Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State that, again, will probably be a top 10 guy, but like the order which all those guys, I think it's pretty, it's, in past years you can look at it and I think you have a little bit more of an idea of where guys are going to go, or this year, I think it's really wide open, which will make it interesting to watch on Thursday night.
Mm-hmm. What are some of your favorite like draft stories from Dad, I was going to ask you earlier, like you don't have to name names, but do you have any good fights with GMs about players or anything?
Well, it's you're looking for a consensus, as Scott has said, and then you hope everyone's on the same page, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. Probably the one that would jump out at me, we were thorough with the Chargers and went through everything in terms of the draft, and felt we had a good handle on it. And late, I'm talking about 2 days before the draft, Larry English's name came up, and he was an undersized. He was an outside linebacker that was projected as a defensive end, and I was in the room, and when his name came up, there was like 3 people talking about him, and a bunch of guys had never even seen his name in print. It was just out of nowhere. So we went in there. Oh yeah, this guy is going to be super, and he was a great kid. He just was kind of a tweener out of position. He wasn't a guy that could drop into coverage, and he wasn't physically big enough, really, to be that dominating pass rusher. So that one, I guess, would be right pretty much at the top of my list.
So it was like a last minute, this is who we have to get, and then it just kind of derailed the whole plan of what you guys were thinking?
Well, we always talked about having clusters, like say you had the 21st pick. You have 4 or 5 guys that you like at that spot. And obviously if you're picking the right guys, some of them are going to be gone when you get there. But if you have the right number of guys, someone's going to be there. And then he got thrown into that group. Well, he was going to be there. He wasn't going to be taken in the first round.
Right.
That's
right.
how those discussions come about.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about just the stories of like, meeting people, evaluating these guys when you go to, whether it's the combine or in these pro days and you meet people. And there's last time you were on, Scott, we talked about the Geno Smith workout story, but like these situations you get into, and I guess again, like if there's a specific story or just in general talking about when you meet somebody and you're like, oh, this person is just not going to be a good fit. Like sometimes it's personality or their attitude or demeanor. How influential, I guess, is that on your decision?
It's all part. It's all part of the process. I mean, a lot of times the scouts, they'll have a report on a guy. So like if he had issues with coaches in the past or, whatever the background is, we're going to get that information. And then, when you're working with a team, then you end up meeting with these players and sometimes multiple times. So like you'll meet with them at the combine. Nowadays you do Zoom interviews. You can bring these guys in for the 30 visits. So you spend time with them and again, you ask them about football, you ask them about their life, you kind of try to you test them just to kind of see how they handle it as far as mentally, but also just like how they're going to react to maybe a little bit of pressure situation, whether you watch film with them. You definitely watch film with them, whether it's at the combine or, at the 30 visit or like in the past, especially at the quarterback position, like we would go to a guy's pro day or do a private workout. And then you meet with them either before or after, and same deal. You watch film. And again, try to ask them some tough questions and see how they reacted. And I think, like I said, I think it's all part of it's all part of the evaluation process. I mean, if this guy's an unbelievable player and maybe he's a little bit of has a bad attitude or whatever, you can maybe overlook a little bit of those things, and say, hey, we're going to work with him because of how dynamic he is and how much he's going to help your team. But it's a sliding scale, right? So if he's not as good or, the player isn't as good and there is a lot of issues, and sometimes say, you know what, he might end up being a great player, but it's not going to be for us. And we don't want to, do that for the locker room. And honestly, there's not a lot of guys like that. I mean, they're few and far between. I mean, most of these guys, are good guys and they work hard and they love football and they want to go play. But again, there is issues out there and you investigate everything and, because you want to make a good decision, right? You want to bring good players and good people, into your organization. So all that stuff does. I mean, I'm thinking about a story like, that in 2014 when Dad was talking about when we drafted Teddy, he ended up being we had the 9th pick in the draft, and we drafted Barr from UCLA. What was his first name? Anthony Barr,
Anthony,
right? Yeah. And, he's a really good player and but we knew we wanted a quarterback and Dad, Mike Zimmer and then Rick Spielman, and Zimmer wasn't there for all of them, but we went and saw 10 different quarterbacks because there was a pretty good amount of guys that were coming out that year. And that was the year that Blake Bortles went 3rd overall, which really kind of shocked everybody. We didn't think, not that he was a 1st-round pick, but that he went as high as he did to Jacksonville. And then, Johnny Manziel was there. The Browns traded back into the 1st round because they had drafted the corner from Oklahoma State. I don't remember his name, or in the 1st round, earlier in the 1st round. They had the pick right in front of us. And then they traded back in the 1st round and they got Johnny, and then we traded back in the 1st round, but then like in that and drafted Teddy, but then Derek Carr got drafted. Jimmy Garoppolo got drafted in the 2nd round. And then there were some other guys, that went later on in the draft, like AJ McCarron and whatever. I mean, like they were drafted later. But we had spent a lot of time, investigating these quarterbacks. And, we really liked Teddy. We actually met with him twice because he had a pro day where he didn't throw it as well. And there was a lot of negativity around that. And it didn't bother us so much, but we said, hey, let's go work him out again. So we went down to Fort Lauderdale. And did a private workout with him. And, we just really liked the person, went to dinner with him and his mom. The film obviously was really strong. That's what we liked the most about him. And we were able to get him, and that was kind of chaotic too, because it's a draft. Like you don't know who's going to pick who and,
right. Going to be left.
Yeah, exactly. So like, we were high on him and we were able to make that trade, to get to the 32nd pick and get him. And like Dad said, like he played as a rookie, played really well as a 2nd-year guy. And then we really felt like he was going to take off in his career. And obviously had the bad knee injury, in 2016 going into that year. But that was, there was a lot of like, that was a crazy time, in that draft. Because again, like there were so many quarterbacks. We had them, like Dad said, there was clusters of like how we ranked them. But we really would have been disappointed if we didn't end up with Teddy. And so we were happy that we got him.
Yeah. I was just thinking when we're talking about scouts and evaluating guys, there can be, and it goes back to like what we talk about with analytics, like nothing against scouts. They're doing their job in evaluating, but there are the intangibles, and just like they can be very literal, right, with the evaluation sometimes and who they rank. And it was reminding me of, this wasn't a draft story, but when Dad, you were the head coach, and I don't know if it was like mid-season, I think it was mid-season, and the starting quarterback, maybe got hurt, and you needed it, or some reason you needed to add a quarterback, and you were asking the scouts, who do you have? Who's available? And who is available? We need somebody immediately. Who is available? And I think the scout said, like, well, what kind of quarterback are you looking for? And we're like, well, what am I supposed to, a blonde? Like, what am I supposed to say here? Like, I want the best effing quarterback that's available. Like,
Right.
yeah. And that was just a funny thing of like, yeah, the best person. And
Right.
sometimes that is intangible, and it's not something that's on a stat sheet or.
Well, we lived it for 4 or 5 years with Taylor Heineke, who we'll visit with some point later. He just knew how to play, and undrafted, and Scott went and scouted him. I think we're the only team that scouted him, and we signed him, and he had a pretty amazing career for a guy that
Yeah.
no one wanted.
Yeah, the quarterbacks
I was just going
come in all
to say
shapes and sizes.
Taylor Heineke, an undrafted player who ended up being a starter or starting, right? For how many?
Yeah.
Yeah. But a great story. And again, like, this is the time of year where sometimes some of those great stories begin. Guys that maybe were hoping to get drafted don't get drafted, but then maybe get picked up by a team, get to go to camp with the team or spring, mini camps or whatever. So if you don't get drafted and you're listening to this, there's still hope.
No, and they come in all shapes and sizes. I mean, obviously Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft. You know what I mean? And the success that he's had with the 49ers and some guys that are high picked that don't make it. And I think and I think everyone has serves a purpose in the organization, but a lot of times the scouts, they get so caught up with just the physical traits. You know what I mean? And a lot of times too, like there's a lot of bias involved. Like, there's certain people that I don't like receivers from USC because they were drafted receiver from USC one time and he wasn't good. And I'm just using an extreme example, but like there's a lot of those things. And sometimes it's just subliminal. They don't even think about it, that you have, that there's a bias against a certain guy or a certain type of player, maybe because you had a type of player like that didn't necessarily work out. And I just think it's important in evaluations to treat every single thing as their own individual case, and you learn from the mistakes you make in the past, sure, but like don't hold one guy's failure against another player just because maybe he's a similar type athlete or whatever, and especially the hardest thing to tell is just the ability to deal with adversity. I mean, the NFL is so hard, and it requires such amount of toughness, and not just physical toughness, but mental toughness, of dealing with failure, whether it's team or individual failure, and bouncing back and from it and competing against the best of the best. And I think that's where it's just hard to see it. And a lot of these guys, especially the high draft picks and college players, like they don't really know anything other than success, So when that first adversity hits them, and it's going to hit them in the NFL, I don't care how good you are, you're going to have to deal with it at some point in some form or the other. And the guys just, they struggle with it. They have a hard time with it. And it can derail careers. So that's the biggest thing, that's hard to see because sometimes there's no evidence of having to deal with it.
Yeah.
I guess the last one, and I've been, thinking about these guys, and Scott said a couple of things that made me think of it. Stephen Davis was at Auburn, and he was really as a young, his second to last year. I don't remember if he came out as a junior, but he played at such a high level, and they ran a running game. They had a I formation. He did all the things. His last year at Auburn, they went to a spread, and he was a I formation power tailback with great speed. I made the comment when we were evaluating him, if he had gone to USC when I was at USC, when Marcus was there and the different I tailbacks, he would have been a Heisman Trophy candidate because he could run the football, which he proved later. But there was such a mix of evaluation, and a couple of our scouts, one of our scouts who was like the second in command, had him rated as a first round pick, but there was a guy that had him a fifth or sixth round pick, and he had some information from someone in Auburn that Stephen didn't work hard, and the things that come out, and you don't know where they come from, but that was on it. So back then, the draft, it wasn't just one round. It was we had 2 rounds, and then you took a break, and then you had 4, whatever. But we had an early pick. I think we had the 3rd pick on day 2, and I went to bat pretty hard for Stephen, and it was still a big discussion. And then let's sleep on it and reconvene in the morning. And I don't know who got together and how they communicated, but it was pretty clear that to everyone that I wanted to draft Stephen. And when we got together again, if he's there, let's do it. So we took him, and he ended up in his 3rd year rushing for 1,500 yards, and we won the division. He had like 17 touchdowns, and they set him aside. He wasn't Snyder's favorite guy. They set him aside. Carolina signed him in free agency, and he basically leads them to the Super Bowl. They had a good cast, but he was their, workhorse. So it's interesting. You just got to be careful in terms of how you see him fitting with you. And then, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be flying in the next 10 days. People positioning for someone, and there's always rumors or whatever you want to say. Oh, this guy did this or this guy did that, and it's getting close to decision time, so they're trying to screw with you a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you got to be careful. Some of those reports that get leaked. You know what I mean? You got to kind of take everything with a grain of salt this time of year. That's for sure. Lying season, right? That's what they call it. So,
yeah, and like you saw, trusting the instinct of what you see in somebody, like Stephen Davis is the example. Like you saw something in him that maybe wasn't being utilized in the offense that he was in, that you felt like he could be great at in your system. And those are the fun stories. Like obviously it's exciting to see the top guys go, but I always love the underdog story, and like the people who maybe thought they were going to get drafted higher or fell for some reason, one reason or another, or just barely made it to begin with, and then who have a great NFL career. I mean, those are the good stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, it's good to be back with you guys. I think we'll wrap this one up. We can't ask you what you would do, Scott, because we've already asked you. If you didn't play football, what would you do?
That's right. Okay.
But
Scott's going to be back with us.
Scott's going to be, I know, we're excited to have you joining us more often on the Family Business podcast. And
for sure.
And yeah, we'll wrap this one up. So thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts, and we'll see you on the next one.